Welcome back, students. This is your Dean, CountXevious. Today, we are going to go through the newest of Silph meta, which is the Brawler Cup meta. I hope you guys had a great start to the Silph season with your Lunar Cups. So now, let's focus on the next meta. The Brawler Cup meta. What is the meta restrictions here? Unfortunately, there are none. For those who have been grinding your Mega Candy, you cannot use them. The others are basically differences based on different weight classes. In this meta, we have 6 different weight classes. For the love of God, I cannot remember what these weight classes are. I'm just gonna call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 different weight classes, and you can pick one Pokemon from each of these slots. What I'm going to do is now put out, let's say, different categories of Pokemon that I think are important, and I'm going to give you a color code on them so that you can follow which slot they belong to. For example, slot number 1, it's going to be red, slot number 2 is purple, slot 3 is light blue, 4 is pink, 5 is dark blue, and 6 is green. I think, yes, it's right. Alright, so that said, let's get into the meta. There are 6 slots, and I think there are going to be 6 typings that you need to incorporate into your teams to have a decent and well-balanced squad. So these typings, according to me, are Ghost, Ground, Flying, Fighting, Dragon, Ice, and then Grass, if you are, for your wildcard slot. Like always, I've put in the Pokemon that is the most strongest option among the typings at the top. For example, for the Ghost typing, Sableye does the best, and for Ground typing, it's going to be Whiscash because it has a bait move and also a huge nuke move. For the Flying, you have your Shadow Zapdos at the back because it does a lot of damage and it gets to these Thunderbolts and Drill Packs really fast. Fighting, as usual, Toxie is at the top because it's a part Poison type and it resists most of the other and it resists counters, so which is perfect for it to be at the top. Dragon types, you have Shadow Dragonite. With Dragon Tail, it's going to be extremely oppressive as a fast move pressure, and you don't even have to run Dragon Tail. You can run Dragon Breath for amazing fast move pressure. Ice types, it's going to be Shadow Obama at the top. There are like a few exceptions here. The reason why I put Shadow Obama at the top because I think it's going to do a little bit more work as a part grass type as well, unlike let's say the Alolan Sandslash, which is going to be a bit more afraid about the ground type Pokemon. And then it can also beat, let's say, the Lapras, and if you can land the Energy Ball on the Frostlass, you also have a pretty decent matchup there. Grass types, you have Ferrothorn at the top, and this is because Ferrothorn can either have access to Mirror Shot or Flash Cannon, which can do well against the rest of the grass types. And it's also a part steel type, so it can also have some play against the dragons and the ice types, and let's say the flying and the ghost types. With that in mind, let's go through the first group of Pokemon that I think form a very good core for the meta. The first group for me is going to be the ground, grass, and ice types. The ice has play and does well against the ground, and the ice can also beat the grass types. Grasses beat the ground types, and some grasses can beat the ice types because the ice types some of them are part water. One grass type that really stands out is going to be your Ferrothorn because it has a part steel type, and steel is going to do quite a bit of damage if you land the move on the ice type Pokemon. And so overall, if you look at it, Ferrothorn really stands out because it has plenty of coverage and it can do well against the ice and also does well against the ground type Pokemon. But the disadvantage being it takes neutral damage from ground type moves. So now that you have your first block of life, that's what I'm going to call it from now on because Circle of Life was a bit iffy. So which set of Pokemon do well against this first initial block of life are your counter users. Counter users like Machamp do well against the entirety of this bunch, except maybe Frostlass, but Shadow Machamp can still hit Frostlass for super effective damage with its Rock Slide. And the same with Venusaur, and the Venusaur should shield the Rock Slide for it to do well against the Shadow Machamp. The only real Pokemon that stands out is Whimsicott, because Whimsicott being a Charmer is going to do well, and a Fairy type is going to do well against all the counter users. And Whimsicott is pretty important here because it belongs to slot number 1. And slot number 1 is whatever Pokemon you can pick out of that slot and put it in your team and that does well, it's gold. So Whimsicott is a good pick for slot number 1 if you want to deal with these disgusting Shadow Machamp users. Actually, they're not disgusting, it's just the Pokemon is absolutely broken in this meta. Now that you're this far into the video, please, if you like our content, do like, share and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And I would also like to point out that we are doing a Brawler Cup podcast in Twitch with some of the most amazing battlers in Silph. We're going to do it with Inadequence, Kevin Saludares and Leandro. Leandro was previous season's legend. Inadequence is in the first page of Silph already, and Kevin Saludares probably will make it there soon after his recal happens. We will be doing this at 19:30 Central European Standard Time. Hope to see you all there. That was the first block that I think is important to look at. Now let's go to the second block. The second block is basically going to be made up of Pokemon that can beat the counter users and also have play against the first block. What can beat the counter users? Flyers, dragons, and ghost types. Sableye is going to be the top dog here, but unfortunately against something like an Obstagoon or Vigoroth, Sableye still struggles. And even against Machamp, if the Machamp manages to land the Rock Slide, Sableye is goners. But I think Sableye is a very good pick in this position. You also have Cofagrigus, Alolan Marowak, and Drifblim. All of these ghost types do well against the counter users. Then you have the Flyers. The Flyers can have and definitely do have play against the ghost types because some of them do quite a bit of damage. And I think that there's still play for the Flyers against the ghost types. But what is important here is when you look at the dragon type Pokemon. These Pokemon have a very niche place in this meta, especially the shadow versions. Like Dragonite is absolutely oppressive and it can do a lot of damage against most of the meta. Same goes for Flygon. You give it some energy advantage with Mudshot and the Dragon Claw spam. You can basically force shields and power through lineups, or you can use it as a closer because it has like really heavy hitting moves and it has a high attack stat. Zweilous, I think, is a pretty interesting Pokemon in this meta. Personally, for me, I don't think it'll be a part of my team because it being a part Dark type really holds it back against the counter users, and I think this is a meta that's going to have quite a bit of counter users, and it does really hold it back. Taking a lot of damage from a Shadow Machamp, for example, is absolutely not something that you want to build your team on. Plus, you have Pokemon like Drifblim, which is still going to be able to hit you for super effective damage. And a lot of the matchups for Zweilous, you will probably have to land the Dark Pulse, for example, against the Sableye. You have to land the Dark Pulse. The same goes for a little Marowak. And with Cofagrigus, I think 1-0 shields, it can try to pick you up as well. So yeah. The last dragon is Dragalge. Why it's there is because it's part poison as well, so it can resist the counters. And hence it makes sense that it can be used a little bit more in the meta. Plus its moves are really heavy hitting and it can get to it really quickly with the Dragon Tail. Like I said before, the ghost types are essentially there to beat the counter users, except again the exception being Obstagoon because it has access to, it's a part dark type as well, so it being normal and dark is going to resist everything that you throw at it. As a ghost type, but the other counter users you can beat pretty comfortably with the ghost types. So putting both the blocks together, you get like a really good dumbbell, which is going to be connected by the counter users. Those are the ones that you need to check, and the other half is the Pokemon that you need to build around. So when you look at it this way, you can definitely see that the dragon types have a little bit of advantage in this meta. The only real absolute checks for the dragon types, like something like Shadow Dragonite, is the ice type. So you might want to incorporate ice types into your lineup if you do not want to be Dragon Breath down. Or you could incorporate a Charmer like Whimsicott, for example. It can do very well against the meta. Like there are very few Pokemon that actually scare a Whimsicott. Yes, there is Shadow Golbat. Yes, there is and the G-Fisk, but the point is, they are going to be limited by the slot and you need to sacrifice something to pick those Pokemon. Whimsicott is in a slot where it can be picked and it is a very, very strong pick. If you look at the color coding on the screen, you can already see that slot number 1 is kind of sad. And there are very limited viable Pokemon, but I've listed out some Pokemon that I really think can be viable. For example, you have the Castform, you have the Greedent. Greedent should be, according to me, ranked a little bit more higher in the meta, but it's not. I think it's only because it loses a lot of its matchup because of bait. For example, Talonflame, Greedent can pick it up if the Talonflame doesn't bait with Flame Charge, and it's something like that. So it has a lot of bait dependent losses, so I think it should, if you use it right, be higher up in your teams. And I would personally, if I was given a chance to build, and I would definitely try to start or finish with Greedent in my team. Then there are like some very interesting Pokemon. If you want really, really good bulk, you can go with Jumpluff. Jumpluff is great. It's a grass flyer, so it can deal with your with the counter users. It can deal with the ground types. It can deal with the other grasses, and it can also have certain play against some of the ghost type Pokemon and the flyers as well, because of its bulk, basically. The other one, last but not least, is Qwilfish. Qwilfish is going to spam you to oblivion. You can give it Sludge Wave, Aqua Tail, or Aqua Tail Ice Beam based on what you want to cover. If you want to cover your dragon types, I would put Ice Beam on there. If you want to cover some of the counter users, I would put Sludge Wave. It depends on what you really want to build your team across. Like for example, if you want your Qwilfish to do some damage against the water and ice types, you would want to put Sludge Wave, because Ice Beam and Aqua Tail is probably not going to cut it. So it's a very interesting Pokemon, and I think that's something you definitely have to look at. All right, last but not the least, safe swap slots. And I really think in this meta, Dusclops has pretty good play. It doesn't matter if you have a Shadow or a normal Dusclops. They are really, really bulky. You can give it coverage moves based on what your team is weak to. If your team is weak to dragons, you can give it Ice Punch. If your team is weak to the steels and ice types, you can give it Fire Punch, for example. It covers the ghost types, it covers the counter users pretty well, and it can also do well against the flyers. So if you look at the overall meta and how the meta is shaping out, like it has play against the ground, it has play against the grasses, it has play against the counter users, has play against the dragons, has play against the flyers, and also the ice types. So in a way, it kind of falls under the category of it being an amazing safe swap, and I really like it. I might have to think about building a team around Dusclops as well. Then there's the conventional safe swappers. Drapion, it came in clutch for me in my Lunar Cup tournaments. It was one of the best safe swaps there, and I still think it has amazing play because of its Spark Poison type. It doesn't take super effective damage from the counter users, and it does hit them back really, really hard if you manage to land the Sludge Wave, or you can have Aqua Tail for it to keep chipping on the counter users. Then you have something like a normal Castform. It's pretty good because it has Hex, has 2 Weather Balls, normal and Rock. If you want, you can also give it Energy Ball, for example, if your team is weak to water types. So there is a way to play around everything with the safe swaps here. Shadow Slax, just because it's Shadow Slax, it can do well. It will force shields, and I think that's something that's really important in this meta. So it can force shields early, and then try to come in with another Pokemon for the sweep.